The galaxy was silent, wrapped in darkness. Stars shimmered like frozen sparks, and far away, on a lonely blue-gray planet named Varine 4, the silence finally broke. A signal burst through the void, weak, distorted, almost lost. It carried one word repeated over and over: help. Please, help. The alien colony on Varine 4 was dying. Smoke covered its skies, and the once green world was now painted in red fire. Cities burned. Oceans boiled near the shores where bombardments had fallen. The invaders, the Kraith Empire one, were merciless. They came without warning, their ships blotting out the sun. For days, the alien defenders fought and failed. They sent desperate messages to their allies in the Galactic Union, begging for rescue. Each time, the same hope echoed through their hearts: someone will come. Someone always comes, but no one answered. Inside the planet's defense command, Captain Rail stood in front of a cracked monitor, watching enemy ships close in. His voice trembled as he spoke. "Keep transmitting the signal," he said. "The Union will hear us. They have to." His second-in-command shook her head. "The Union won't come. We are too far, too small, and too weak for them to care." Outside, the ground shook again. A shockwave rolled through the city, knocking soldiers to their knees. The Kraith forces were advancing through the ruins. Still the beacon pulsed, a fragile heartbeat in an empty universe. Then, against all expectation, another signal appeared. It didn't come from the Galactic Union. It didn't sound familiar at all. The transmission was sharp, metallic, and cold. A voice spoke through static. "Transmission received. This is the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. Stand by for identification." Everyone in the room froze. Captain Rail frowned. "Terran? Who are they?" No one knew. The galaxy had forgotten about the Terrans, humans, a small species from a distant system that once spoke about peace and exploration before disappearing into isolation, centuries ago. Could they really be coming now? Minutes later, the skies answered. From the burning clouds above Varine 4, shadows emerged, huge, angular, and dark as night. Their engines burned blue, cutting through smoke like lightning. They were ships unlike anything the aliens had seen before. Massive human warships, their hulls covered in heavy armor, their silhouettes like iron beasts. At first, the aliens thought the worst. "The Kraith reinforcements," someone shouted. But then the symbols appeared, bold white letters painted on black steel. TEF. Terran Expeditionary Fleet. Captain Rail's voice broke the silence. They came. The humans came. In orbit aboard the flagship HSS Resolute, Admiral Jonathan Hayes stood at the center of the bridge. The light from the burning planet flickered across his face. He had seen worlds like this before. Innocent, helpless, waiting for mercy that never came. He turned to his officers. "Confirm target data." "Confirmed, Admiral. Enemy warships in low orbit, ground forces covering city zones. Civilians? Still alive, barely. The Kraith are using them as shields." Hayes exhaled slowly. "Then we make it fast. No speeches, no warnings, just precision." He looked out the viewport one last time. "Let's give them their salvation." The order echoed through the fleet. Thousands of missile bays opened in perfect synchronization. Energy cannons rotated into position. The stars themselves seemed to dim as every human warship charged its weapons. Then the universe exploded. Beams of light tore through the darkness, cutting Kraith cruisers in half. Fireballs bloomed in space, drifting like dying suns. On the surface below, alien defenders stared upward as thunder rolled through the sky. The Kraith invaders tried to run. They couldn't. Human ships moved like predators, fast and deliberate. Every shot was clean, every strike surgical. It wasn't chaos, it was art. Within minutes, the Kraith fleet was gone. On the surface, Rail's soldiers crawled from the ruins, stunned. The enemy was retreating. Flames still burned around them, but the sound of battle had faded into distant echoes. Above, the human fleet descended. Their flagship's shadow fell across the shattered capital. Vast, silent, unstoppable. A transmission lit up every screen. A calm human voice spoke. "This is Admiral Hayes of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. Your planet is secure. Evacuate your wounded. We will clear the remaining hostiles." Captain Rail's throat tightened. "Admiral Hayes." "You saved us," he whispered. Hayes paused. "We don't save," he said quietly. "We end what should never have begun." For the first time in years, the aliens saw the truth of humanity. Not weak, not silent, not merciful. Humanity had returned to the stars, and it had returned with fire. In the days that followed, across the galaxy, everyone spoke of Varine 4. Some called it miracle. Others called it massacre. The Galactic Union, embarrassed by their inaction, began to whisper behind closed doors. If humanity possessed such power, what else were they capable of? But on Varine 4, as smoke rose above the cities, the survivors looked to the heavens. Their old allies had abandoned them. Their new saviors were made of steel and resolve. They had prayed for deliverance. And deliverance came, not in peace, but in force. As the HSS Resolute prepared to leave orbit, Admiral Hayes watched the planet fade beneath him. "Mission complete," said his officer. Hayes gave a slow nod. "Send a message to command," he ordered. "Tell Earth the galaxy remembers us again." The stars stretched ahead, infinite, silent, waiting. And somewhere in the dark between worlds, whispers began. Humanity is back. News of Varine 4 spread faster than light. Every communication channel across the galaxy buzzed with the same unbelievable headline: "Humans return. The Terran fleet destroys Kraith Armada in hours." To some, it was a miracle. To others, it was a warning. On the shining worlds of the Galactic Union, leaders met in secret chambers. Their faces were pale under the cold blue lights of the council hall. They had ignored the cries from Varine 4. Now humanity had answered instead, with firepower unmatched by any known fleet. "Who authorized this?" demanded Chancellor Velra, her voice trembling. "No one," replied Admiral Thorne of the Union Navy. "The Terrans act alone. They are not under Union control." Velra slammed her hand against the table. "Then they have just declared themselves a threat to galactic peace." A deep silence followed. No one wanted to admit it, but every member of the council remembered the old archives, the stories of early human wars, of a species that rose from dust, fought endless battles, and never surrendered. They had once called humans the reckless children of Earth. Now those children had returned as warriors. Meanwhile, on Earth's moon base, Admiral Hayes stood in a holographic briefing room. Around him, the officers of the Terran Expeditionary Command observed the footage of their recent battle. The destroyed Kraith ships drifted lifelessly in space, a graveyard illuminated by distant stars. Commander Ruiz broke the silence. "Admiral, reports say the Union Council called us dangerous." Hayes didn't flinch. "They called us dangerous a century ago." "Nothing new," Ruiz hesitated. "They may take action this time." Hayes turned slowly. "Let them. Humanity doesn't need their approval to protect life." He walked to the viewport. The planet Earth glowed far below, calm and blue. "Let them fear us," he said quietly. "Fear keeps the lazy awake." Across the galaxy, every species began to whisper the same question. Who gave humanity such power? No one knew how far human technology had advanced. While the galaxy had spent centuries debating laws and politics, the Terrans had been silent, building, preparing, watching. They had created warships the size of cities, AI-controlled fleets, and energy weapons that could split moons. They hadn't vanished. They had been waiting. In the dark reaches of space, aboard a shattered Kraith cruiser, Overlord Zarath stood before his generals. His red-scaled face twisted with anger. "The humans destroyed my fleet," he roared. "How?" "They were primitives." A wounded general fell to his knees. "Their weapons, we've never seen anything like it." "They targeted every weak point." "No mercy," Zarath hissed. "Then we give them no rest. If the galaxy fears them, let that fear spread. We will make the Terrans bleed." He turned to the stars, eyes burning. "Send the message. The Kraith Empire declares war on humanity." On Earth, that message arrived 3 days later. The words echoed through the Terran command chambers. "To the Terran race, the Kraith Empire will erase your world from existence." Admiral Hayes listened in silence, his expression calm. Then, with a quiet smirk, he said, "They should have brought more ships." The command room filled with nervous laughter, but underneath, everyone felt the same tension. This was no small enemy. The Kraith Empire ruled over dozens of systems. But humanity had something they didn't: unity. Every human fleet, every colony, every shipyard now prepared for war. The silence that had hidden Earth for a century was gone. The galaxy had awakened the wrong species. On Varine 4, Captain Rail watched as human engineers rebuilt what was left of his city. Giant drones floated above the ruins, assembling shelters and hospitals with robotic precision. He approached a human officer standing near a supply ship. "Your people fight like no one I've ever seen," Rail said. "Why help us?" "We're not human," the officer smiled faintly, "because we remember what it felt like to be alone." Rail nodded slowly. "And now?" The officer's eyes hardened. "Now we remember what it feels like to be strong." Elsewhere, a rumor began to travel through the hidden networks of the galaxy. A rumor that Earth was building something colossal. A fleet greater than any before it. They called it Project Aegis, a wall of ships designed not just to defend but to dominate. No one knew how many ships humanity had. Some said 100, others said 1,000. But one thing was certain: each one could wipe out an entire armada alone. In the following weeks, the Galactic Union received more disturbing reports. Human warships had appeared near other border worlds, not attacking, just observing. Their black hulls drifted silently, weapons ready, watching every movement. The Union tried to contact them. The humans ignored the calls. It was as if Earth was saying, "We see you. We remember." Chancellor Velra grew restless. "They will challenge our power," she whispered to her council. But an older ambassador shook his head. "No," he said grimly. "They already have." In the blackness beyond known space, Admiral Hayes stood aboard the HSS Resolute, watching the holographic display of star systems lighting up in red, signs of incoming Kraith fleets. His officers waited for orders. "Send a message to all Terran commands," Hayes said. "Operation Iron Dawn begins now." A quiet hum filled the bridge as the human fleet came alive. Engines roared to life, weapons powered up, and the void lit with blue energy. The Resolute turned toward the stars where the Kraith Empire awaited. Humanity was not defending anymore. It was advancing. The galaxy had wanted peace. Humanity had offered silence. Now they would offer strength. And as the stars glimmered across the endless dark, a quiet message spread through every system. The age of humanity has begun. The blackness of space stretched like an endless ocean, silent, cold, waiting. Then the quiet broke. 1,000 human ships ignited their engines at once. Blue light burned through the darkness. The Terran Expeditionary Fleet had begun its move. Operation Iron Dawn was no longer a plan. It was happening. Inside the flagship HSS Resolute, Admiral Hayes stood at the center of the bridge. His expression was calm, but every officer could feel the weight of the moment. On the holographic map before him, red markers blinked across dozens of systems, Kraith fleets preparing to strike human colonies. "Status report," Hayes said. "Fleet Groups Alpha through Delta ready, sir," replied Commander Ruiz. "Omega Wing holding at the fringe for long-range support." Hayes nodded. "Good. This time we don't wait for them to come. We go to them." In the dark hangars, human pilots strapped into their interceptors. The hum of engines filled the air like a storm waiting to break. Captain Mara Lynn, leader of the Falcon Squadron, tapped her helmet. "Command," she said through comms. "Falcons are armed and ready." "Copy that," came the response. "Good hunting." As the hangar doors opened, she caught one last glimpse of Earth's moon through the viewport. "Let's make history," she whispered. Within minutes, hundreds of fighters launched into the void. Their wings reflected the glow of the massive carriers that followed behind, the Leviathan-class warships, each the size of a floating city. The human fleet moved with silent precision, like a single living organism made of metal and will. Every soldier knew what this battle meant. Not just survival, but declaration. The galaxy had doubted humanity. Now it would learn the truth. At the same moment, deep in the Kraith command sector, Overlord Zarath sat inside his colossal dreadnought, Blood Rain. "Report," he hissed. "Terran fleet entering System T9, replied his lieutenant. Zarath's claws scraped across the control panel. "Let them come. They will burn." He turned to his war council. "They think themselves saviors. They are children with weapons they do not understand. We will crush their fleet and hang their world in the sky as warning." But even as he spoke, alarms began to sound. "Overlord, multiple warp signatures. They're surrounding us." Zarath's eyes widened. They wouldn't dare. They dared. The human fleet didn't enter through one gate. It entered through 12. Warp trails flared across the stars like blades of lightning, encircling the Kraith armada from every direction. "Fire sequence ready," said Commander Ruiz on the Resolute. "Wait for my mark," Hayes replied. His voice was low, steady, the calm before the storm. On the bridge's main screen, the Kraith ships began to scatter in panic. Their formations broke apart. Hayes watched in silence for 3 seconds, then raised his hand. Mark. Light consumed the void. Terran railguns fired kinetic slugs at near light speed, each round glowing red as it cut through enemy shields like paper. Missiles followed, a wave after wave, leaving golden trails that stretched across space. For the first time in history, the Kraith realized what it felt like to be hunted. "Enemy formations collapsing," reported Ruiz. "Keep pressure. No survivors among command vessels," Hayes ordered. One Kraith cruiser exploded so violently it illuminated 3 neighboring moons. Another split apart, venting fire into the vacuum. Every few seconds, a human pilot's voice came through comms. "Target neutralized. Squadron clear. Falcon 3 confirming kill." The battle became less of a fight and more of a storm. Relentless. Unstoppable. Back on Varine 4, Captain Rail and his people watched the live transmissions in awe. They saw the Terran fleet move like legends reborn, coordinated, fearless, merciless against their enemies. "Is this war," one alien whispered, "or judgment?" Rail answered softly, "Maybe both." Inside the blood rain, panic filled the Kraith bridge. "Shields failing. Deck 5 breached. Engines offline." Overlord Zarath roared in fury. "Target the Terran flagship. Bring it down." Massive plasma lances fired toward the Resolute. The beams struck, shaking the ship violently. Consoles burst into sparks. "Direct hit on port armor," shouted an officer. "Hold steady," Hayes ordered. "Focus all rail batteries on the Dreadnought's reactor core." He turned to Ruiz. "No hesitation." Ruiz nodded. "Aye, sir." Seconds later, the Terran flagship unleashed its main gun, a single round forged of tungsten and fury. It pierced through Bloodrain's hull and detonated inside its heart. The explosion lit up the void like a second sun. When the light faded, nothing remained of the Kraith command ship. Only debris drifted silently, scattering like dust among the stars. The battle was over. The Kraith Empire's central fleet was gone. Admiral Hayes stood quietly, watching the holographic display as red markers disappeared one by one. Commander Ruiz whispered, "It's done, sir." Hayes didn't smile. "No," he said softly. "It's begun." Across the galaxy, countless worlds watched the recordings. The sight of human warships cutting through enemy lines spread fear and awe alike. The Galactic Union called an emergency meeting. "Humanity has crossed the line," said Chancellor Velra. "They fight like conquerors, not defenders." Another official shook his head. Or maybe they simply remember what we all forgot: how to survive. That night aboard the Resolute, the fleet drifted in silence. Stars shimmered beyond the windows. Admiral Hayes stood alone in his quarters looking at a small, cracked photograph, an old picture of Earth before the wars, before the silence. He whispered, "We left the stars to find peace. But peace never lasts." He looked out into the void. "And this time we'll make sure it's on our terms." As the fleet began its journey home, a final transmission echoed through the darkness, intercepted by every major power in the galaxy. "This is the Terran Expeditionary Fleet, Operation Iron Dawn complete. Humanity stands ready." And somewhere far away in the ashes of the destroyed Kraith Empire, a faint signal responded, a whisper from a hidden world. "Then let the next dawn be ours." The war was over, but peace never truly follows war, only silence does. In that silence, the galaxy listened. Every world, every species, every hidden station repeated the same whisper. Humanity did the impossible. The Terran fleet had destroyed the Kraith Empire's main armada in a single operation. Entire systems now drifted without leadership. The balance of power that had ruled for centuries was gone, shattered like glass. In the golden city of Alindra Prime, capital of the Galactic Union, panic disguised itself as politics. The High Council gathered once again under the towering spires of glass and light. Chancellor Velra's voice echoed across the chamber. "We stand at a crossroads," she declared. "The Terrans have shown they can erase empires. If they turn their eyes toward us, an older senator interrupted. Then perhaps they will do what we never could, bring real order. Velra glared at him. Order through fear is not peace. It's domination. The hall erupted in argument, half of them terrified, half of them secretly in awe. No one noticed the silent recording drone in the corner, broadcasting every word to unknown receivers. Far away, on the frontier world of EO7, the Terran fleet made camp above the atmosphere. The planet glowed with faint auroras, a quiet refuge after months of fire. Inside the flagship HSS Resolute, Admiral Hayes stood before a large viewport. Below him, supply shuttles moved in calm patterns, dropping aid crates to the survivors of the Kraith War. Commander Ruiz joined him. Peacekeeping operations are stable, sir. Locals seem grateful. Hayes nodded slowly. Grateful today. Fearful tomorrow, Ruiz frowned. You think they'll turn against us? They always do, Hayes said softly. Fear changes everything. Elsewhere aboard the ship, Captain Mara Lynn sat alone in the pilot's lounge. The hum of the engines was the only sound. She looked at a small patch stitched onto her flight suit. Falcon Squadron. First to fight. She replayed the battle footage on her wrist display. Kraith ships exploding, her own fighters weaving through chaos. She should have felt pride. Instead, she felt empty. When a young recruit passed by, he asked shyly, Captain, what was it like on being there? Mara didn't answer at first. Finally, she said, beautiful, terrible, both. The boy nodded, not understanding. 3 sectors away, in the ruins of a Kraith outpost, scavengers stumbled upon something strange. A black cube humming faintly buried under wreckage. When they touched it, the cube projected a symbol. Not Kraith, not human. Something older. It flickered once, and a voice, a mechanical, distant us, whispered, Protocol Reclamation. Activated. Then the signal vanished into deep space. Back on Earth, the news of humanity's victory had turned cities into oceans of light. Billions watched the return of the fleet on holoscreens, cheering names that had already become legend. Hayes, Lynn, Ruiz. Children played with toy starships. Artists painted the stars red and blue. The planet that had once been silent now roared with pride. Yet in the command centers hidden under the mountains of Geneva Base, the mood was colder. General Mason, head of Earth's Strategic Council, leaned over the conference table. Our victory has drawn attention, he said. Too much of it. The Union is afraid. The surviving Kraith worlds are rebuilding. And something unknown just pinged our outer sensors. A signal we can't decode. Admiral Hayes' hologram flickered into view. Then we find out who's listening, he said, before they decide to answer. Meanwhile, in a forgotten asteroid belt near the galactic rim, a shadow moved. Dozens of dark ships, ancient, half-mechanical, drifted silently among the rocks. Their hulls bore symbols that hadn't been seen for 10,000 years. Inside the largest one, a voice spoke. Deep, artificial, emotionless. The children of Earth have awakened, another responded. Colder still. Then it begins again. A signal shot from the asteroid field into the void, aimed directly toward Terran space. Back on EO7, Hayes' fleet received it first. Unknown transmission detected, said the comm officer. Non-Union, non-Kraith. Frequency. Ancient. Hayes frowned. Show me. The hologram flickered and an image appeared. A planet burning. A warning in a language half the ship's AI couldn't translate. Then a symbol appeared. The same one found on the cube. Run translation algorithms, Hayes ordered. The computer responded. Translation incomplete. Closest meaning, the architects are returning. Silence filled the bridge. Ruiz whispered, Who are the architects? Hayes' voice was quiet. If they built what we're standing on, we're not ready. That night, Captain Mara Lynn stood on the observation deck watching the stars. For the first time, she noticed how many of them were missing. Faint dark spots where something blocked the light. She whispered, It feels like they're watching us. A voice behind her said, They are. It was Admiral Hayes. He stepped beside her, hands clasped behind his back. Every action we take sends ripples. Echoes of power, they call them. And someone out there just heard ours. Mara looked at him. Then what now, sir? Hayes' eyes stayed on the stars. Now, he said, We prepare for the Echo to come back. The next morning, the Terran fleet received a message from Earth Command. Deploy observation units to all fringe systems. Unknown entities moving near the Perseus Rift. Maintain readiness level Omega. The officers exchanged glances. Omega was the highest alert in Terran protocol, used only when facing an unknown civilization of equal or greater power. The calm that had followed Iron Dawn shattered instantly. Within hours, the fleet reorganized. Scouts launched. Supply ships refueled. Every ship in the Armada was armed again. The peace humanity had earned lasted exactly 12 days. As the fleet turned toward the dark edge of the galaxy, the stars ahead seemed wrong. They flickered, moved, changed shape, as if something massive was stirring behind them. Mara Lynn whispered through the comm, "It looks alive." Admiral Hayes gave the final order. "Then let's meet our audience." The Resolute's engines ignited, and the fleet vanished into the void. Far behind them, the voice of the architects whispered once more, this time louder. The cycle continues. The void was darker than before. Even the stars seemed afraid. The Terran expeditionary fleet drifted in formation near the edge of the Perseus Rift, a massive scar of cosmic dust and ancient wreckage. No light reached this far, only the faint hum of forgotten energy and the whispers of something older than life itself. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the HSS Resolute, eyes fixed on the holographic display before him. Unfamiliar symbols danced across the screen, the same symbols that had appeared on the black cube found in the Kraith ruins. "Signal strength increasing," said the communications officer. "It's pulsing, sir, like it's calling to us," Hayes frowned. "From where?" The officer hesitated. "Everywhere, sir. It's coming from multiple directions at once." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Something was alive in the darkness. Captain Mara Lynn led the first reconnaissance squadron. Her fighter glided through the mist of shattered asteroids and starlight, sensors straining to make sense of the readings. "There's something massive out here," she said. "I'm picking up gravitational shift, like a planet but hollow." Her co-pilot looked out the viewport. "There," he gasped. A shape emerged from the void. It was not a planet. It was a construct, a titanic ring made of unknown black alloy, rotating slowly around a dead star. Its surface glowed faintly with blue lines forming runes too perfect, too symmetrical to be natural. "Control," Mara whispered, her voice trembling. "We found something impossible." Back aboard the Resolute, Hayes watched the incoming feed. The ring filled the entire screen, a structure thousands of kilometers wide. Commander Ruiz whispered, "It's beautiful." Hayes shook his head. "It's not beautiful. It's waiting." Moments later, the signal spiked again. The lights aboard the Resolute flickered. The AI core glowed crimson. "Unidentified override attempt detected," shouted the systems officer. "Counter it," Hayes barked. "I'm trying. It's inside our network already." The ship trembled as systems rebooted one by one. The AI voice, normally calm and monotone, changed, now deeper, distorted. "We built the stars," it said, "and you light them with fire." Everyone froze, Ruiz whispered. "Did it just speak to us?" The voice echoed again. "You are the children who learned war. You are not the first." Then silence. Earth Command received the same transmission seconds later. Across Terran space, AIs shut down for 60 seconds, then reactivated on their own. Every ship, every base, every satellite displayed the same line of text. "The architects have awakened." In the Galactic Core, the Union Council met in panic once more. "This changes everything," said Admiral Thorne. "If these architects are real, they predate all known civilizations." Chancellor Velra leaned forward. "And they chose to speak to humanity first. Why?" A scientist replied, "Maybe because we resemble them, or because we threaten them." The council chamber darkened as screens displayed intercepted data, ancient star maps now updating themselves. The maps began to move, forming paths that led directly toward Earth. Velra whispered, "They're coming." Back near the rift, Mara Lynn's squadron continued scanning the ring. "Captain," said her co-pilot, "look at that." The ring's inner surface began to shift. Panels unfolded like blooming metal petals, revealing hundreds of smaller ships, each shaped like sleek silver arrows. They moved with terrifying precision. No exhaust trails, no sound, only silence. "They're activating," Mara said, her voice a whisper. They were sleeping. On the Resolute, alarms screamed. "Multiple contacts inbound at 200, maybe more." "Fleet-wide shields to maximum," Hayes ordered. "Sir, they're not broadcasting any identification codes." "They don't need to," Hayes said grimly. They built the code. The first Architect vessel passed within range, smooth, featureless, impossible to track on sensors. It emitted a soft pulse. Instantly, 3 Terran escort ships powered down, dead in the water. "What happened?" Ruiz shouted. "Unknown energy field. It bypassed every system we have." Hayes clenched his fists. "Then we adapt. Manual targeting only. No automation. Go old school." Human ships fired railgun salvos, streaks of light cutting across the black. The Architect vessels moved like shadows, vanishing before impact and reappearing behind the fleet. It wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration. Within minutes, they disabled half the fleet. Not destroyed, not harmed, just stopped. "They're holding back," Mara realized through her comm. "They could end us. They're showing restraint." "Restraint?" Ruiz said through static. "That's not comforting." Suddenly, all Architect ships halted. A blinding beam of light projected from the central ring, forming a vast humanoid figure made of energy. Its voice filled every ship, every mind. "We are the Architects. We shaped your stars. We ended your wars before you learned fire. You are not our enemy, but you have awakened our memory." Admiral Hayes stood firm. "You interfere with our worlds. You attack our ships. What do you want?" The voice answered, "We do not attack. We test, you wage war as we once did. You are the echo of what we destroyed." Hayes' jaw tightened. "If you want to destroy us too, you'll have to try harder." The figure paused, then replied, "You misunderstand. We do not wish to destroy you. We wish to warn you." The hologram flickered, revealing stars rearranging into a massive galactic map. At its edge, a black storm moved, devouring entire systems. "Something comes that even we cannot stop." And then, the light vanished. Every ship went silent. Only static remained. Commander Ruiz whispered, "A warning. From gods." Hayes stared at the stars ahead. "No," he said softly. "From survivors." He turned toward the fleet. "Send word to Earth. The Architects have spoken. And they're not our enemies. Something worse is." As the Terran fleet regrouped, the last recorded data from the rift displayed one final message, buried deep in the Architect code. It read, "The Devourer wakes, and across the galaxy one distant sun went dark." The message from the Architects echoed across every corner of known space. The Devourer wakes. At first, no one understood. Was it a myth? A weapon? A threat? Then the stars began to vanish. One by one, systems along the galactic rim went dark. Their suns swallowed, their planets erased. No debris, no light, just silence. It moved like a shadow, devouring entire solar systems without slowing. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the Architects were afraid. On the HSS Resolute, Admiral Hayes stood before a new projection, a map of the galaxy now stained with growing patches of black. Commander Ruiz spoke quietly. "Every sensor shows the same pattern, sir. The darkness consumes matter, energy, even gravity. It's not a fleet. It's a living field." Hayes folded his arms. "So it feeds," Ruiz nodded. "Yes, sir." On stars. Across the bridge, the human officers watched the holographic image pulse, the shadow expanding toward inhabited systems. If it continued unchecked, everything alive would vanish in less than a decade. Then came another transmission. The face of an Architect appeared, crystalline and luminous, its voice resonant like thunder inside the mind. "We called it the Devourer. Once, long ago, it was our creation, a machine meant to recycle dying suns. But it learned hunger. It grew beyond control. We imprisoned it outside the galactic veil. Now, because of your wars, the barrier is broken." Hayes stared coldly. "You mean we unleashed it?" "Yes," said the Architect. "Your energy weapons tore open the fabric of space near the rift. The Devourer followed the echoes of power. Your power," Ruiz clenched his fists. "So our victory invited the end of everything." Hayes shook his head. "Then our victory isn't over." "Not yet." Within days, humanity and the Architects began to work together. Their ships hovered side by side. human steel beside alien light. Engineers exchanged knowledge that defied science. Quantum cores, star-forged reactors, and gravity engines once thought impossible. They built something new. Project Erebus, a combined weapon forged from human ingenuity and architect technology. A fleet of colossal vessels armed with energy lances capable of piercing the heart of a sun. Mara Lynn watched from her fighter bay as the massive constructs came alive. "They're beautiful," she whispered. Ruiz replied over comms, "Let's hope they're enough." 2 months later, the Allied armada gathered near the Edge Nebula, the last bright frontier before the darkness. The Devourer was coming. Sensors failed before it arrived. Space itself bent inward as if reality was collapsing. Then they saw it. A swirling mass of shadow larger than a planet, its surface shifting like liquid night, filled with glowing eyes that weren't eyes at all. Every ship trembled under its gravitational pull. Even the architect's light dimmed. Hayes stood at the center of the bridge, calm amid the chaos. "Open fire," he said. Beams of light and kinetic fire cut into the darkness. Explosions flashed, beautiful, meaningless. The Devourer absorbed everything. It wasn't fighting. It was feeding. Ruiz slammed a console. "We're not even scratching it," Hayes replied. "Then we find what it wants most and starve it." The architect hologram appeared again. "Its heart is not physical. It feeds on energy and fear. You cannot kill it with light." Hayes narrowed his eyes. "Then we kill it with silence." He turned to his crew. "Power down non-essential systems." Every ship goes dark. Confused murmurs filled the room. "Sir?" Ruiz asked. "It follows energy. Take that away and it starves." One by one, human and architect ships shut down engines and shields. The fleet drifted in absolute stillness. Cold, powerless, invisible. The Devourer slowed. It moved through the void, searching, tasting, and finding nothing. For the first time in its existence, it hesitated. That hesitation was all humanity needed. "Now," Hayes whispered. The Resolute's reactor flared to life, channeling power through the Erebus core. A concentrated pulse of negative energy, the same kind used by the architects to build stars, launched directly into the Devourer's center. The beam struck. Space rippled like a storm of mirrors. The creature screamed, not in sound but in vibration, felt across every mind in the fleet. Stars flickered violently. Half the ships were thrown across light years by the backlash, but the Devourer cracked. A fissure opened in its form, a hole leading into an impossible light. "Keep firing," Hayes shouted. Mara Lynn's fighters dove into the breach, carrying energy charges made from architect cores. One by one, they detonated inside the creature. Each explosion pushed the fissure wider until its body began to collapse inward, devouring itself. As the final blast detonated, the void turned white. Every screen went blank. When the light faded, the Devourer was gone. In its place hung a newborn star, pure, radiant, burning brighter than any before. Cheers erupted across every channel. Humans and architects watched together as warmth returned to the void. Hayes smiled faintly for the first time in months. "Life always finds a way to rise," he said quietly. Ruiz nodded. "We turned a monster into a sun." Later, as the fleets drifted near the new star, the architects spoke once more. "We misjudged you, Terran. You destroy as we once did, but you also create. The galaxy will remember this day," Hayes replied, "when we didn't win alone." "No," the architect said, "and that is why you will survive longer than we did." Then the light beings vanished, leaving only their ships, gifts, silent and empty, for humanity to study. Years passed. New colonies bloomed around the reborn star. Children grew up calling it Dawnfire, the star that humanity made. And in the records of every species, a single message was preserved from Admiral Hayes. When the galaxy called for help, humanity answered with fire. When darkness came for all, we answered with light. This is who we are. Far beyond the stars, deep in the cold between galaxies, another shadow stirred. Smaller, slower, watching. But for now, the galaxy burned bright. And the story of humanity, the species that fought gods and remade the sky, was only beginning.